What happens when a black billionaire built from the culture gets pulled into the justice system and the courtroom becomes the main stage? Is it justice or just us?
Yo, the sun don't shine forever, but as long as it's here, then we might as well shine together. Better now than never, business before pleasure. P. Diddy and the fam, who you know do it better. Yeah, right, no matter what, we airtight. So when you hear something, make sure you hear it right. Don't make an ass out of yourself by assuming our music keeps you moving. What are you proving? You know that I'm 2 levels above you, baby. Hug me, baby, I'ma make you love me, baby. Talking crazy ain't gonna get you nothing but choke. And that jealousy is only gonna leave you broke. So the only thing left now is God for these cats. And big, you know you're too hard for these cats. I'ma win cause I'm too smart for these cats. While they making up facts, you making up plaques.
Hey, listen. The rich do it, the poor do it. I do it cause I'm used to it. Welcome back to the Tea Lounge. I am your host, Lady T, and we are here for a powerful, nuanced conversation around the sentencing of Sean Diddy Combs, a man who helped shape the culture, and now he's at the center of a legal storm. So let me introduce tonight's panel. We have host of Conversations with Jay, Mr. Jay Khan, and host of the Crosstown Traffic podcast, Angela McGuire. So now, wait a minute. I just want you all to know that this discussion is not about excusing or condemning individuals, but about examining the trial within its legal, historical, and cultural context. So let's begin. So now this trial spanned 8 intense weeks with testimony from industry insiders, former employees, who knew Diddy both professionally and personally. We watched the prosecution build its case on pattern behavior, and the defense pushed back hard on credibility, motive, monetary, and narrative construction. But the real weight came during the sentencing, where perception met penalty. So let me ask you guys, what stood out the most in this trial as it unfolded? Like, what was one of the key moments for you all having attended? And by the way, they attended for pretty much the whole 8 weeks, correct?
Yeah, I was there all about the first week. I got there on the second week.
Okay.
Yeah,
same thing
so
with you,
did
correct?
I,
Okay.
Same thing.
All right.
So, well, one of the things that I would just like to start off with is I was consuming this case before the trial. I was watching every news show out there. I was watching every podcast. I was just gobbling it up. And I was forming an opinion about P. Diddy. And so when I first got to the trial, I decided, what the heck, I live in New York, I have some free time, let me go down and watch. I was hating on Diddy. I thought, I want to see this man go down. But the thing is, and I think we all might agree, is that once we started seeing what they brought into evidence, it was completely different from the hype. Yeah. So those of us who actually watched the trial in person, through our overflow rooms, we actually saw what it was really about, what was in evidence, and it was very different from the hype. I mean, what I saw, I was expecting to see all this just lascivious, graphic content based on all these things that we heard that were absolutely not true.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I was having the same experience myself. I went there basically looking to see Diddy get thrown under the jail, and then as the time went on, I was sitting here like, well, what are we here for, honestly? Like, I'm confused. So what was your thoughts on it, Jay?
I think the thing that stood up to me the most was the blatant misleading and misguiding of the prosecution, and it was intentional, and there were some times that they just straight up lied.
Yeah.
And I'm talking lying to the jury, saying that the jury didn't hear what they heard or saw what they saw.
Exactly.
So
this might be leading into the second question that I have for you, and that is, did the public get the full story, or just what the media decided to spotlight.
Yeah, that was one of my concerns, was that we saw what the evidence was, and a lot of the witnesses were just unfolding, disintegrating before our eyes. The evidence was not holding up, yet you saw a lot of these famous people on the major networks. They had a narrative that started before they came to trial, and they managed to hang on to it, even though it was being contradicted by the evidence that was presented. And even still, I would talk to some of them. I said, yeah, how's this, turning out for you? I said, this isn't really what we had in mind, was it? I mean, this guy is looking less culpable than we originally intended. And they were just figuring out ways to maintain a narrative and just to carry that line, about Diddy, even though it was just not panning out.
Right. What about you? What did you think in regards to media's perception versus what was happening in that courtroom?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear for the people who were at the trial that the public obviously was totally misled and lied to before, during, and after. But it's often said, right, like nobody cares about the truth when the lie is more entertaining. And it's something that I've actually also noticed about the public, even seeing people blatantly lie and then seeing their audience find out they're lying and get misproven, they still support it because it's running with the narrative that they wanted, right? So they'll switch the channel if the channel's not saying what they want to hear.
I found that to be the same in my, from my perspective. The other thing that got me was just watching like legacy media and some of these content creators in the courtroom, watching their visceral reaction to certain evidence that was being put out there, and then watching them go home, or watching them from home and seeing them like a completely different narrative that they were putting out for the audience. So I remember this one particular instance, and I will, this might lead me to my one of my other questions, but I was sitting there and Cassie was testifying, and it got to the part when she was saying that she was a sex worker. And I watched, I won't say somebody from legacy media, a male, get up, he just threw his hands up and he walked out of the courtroom. And then there was two lawyers, you know how they're like affiliates to, major news outlet. And I heard them whisper, "Oh, that's so wrong." And then the other one said they coached her to say that. And so when I leaned in, I said, "Excuse me, hold on, what did you say?" They act like they was just like buttoned up, wouldn't say a word. So I think I have this going down further in the, so I'll hold on to that question. But let's talk legal history and how certain laws were built not to protect, but to target. So we have the Mann Act, originally passed in 1910 as the White Slave Traffic Act. The Mann Act was designed to stop sex trafficking across state lines. But let's be real, it's been weaponized.
Outside the ivory towers of universities,
Americans faced a rising chorus of voices that also threatened to reshape traditional values. 8.8 million immigrants crowded into American cities in the first decade of the 20th century alone.
There was a lot of tension in the air, but the flashpoint turned on sexuality and particularly prostitution. Mainstream Protestant America thought it was a phenomenon that was caused by those wicked foreigners in those cesspools of cities into which our young girls are now going.
In 1907, the crusading McClure's magazine published a story about an association of Russian Jews purportedly supplying Chicago brothels with new personnel. When a city prosecutor claimed that those prostitutes were, in effect, white slaves, a wave of hysteria gripped the country. Although scant evidence supported the existence of white slavery, Congress passed the White Slave Traffic Act on June 25, 1910. This law, also known as the Mann Act, forbade any person from transporting women or girls across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, debauchery, or any other immoral purpose. Jack Johnson was an easy target for the Mann Act. In 1908, he became the first black man to break through boxing's color barrier and reigned as heavyweight champion of the world.
Perhaps he was the Muhammad Ali of his day. He was very flamboyant. He was pretty much in-your-face kind of person.
Johnson further inflamed his critics by openly keeping company with white women and eventually marrying 2 of them.
Black males were looked at as inherently predatory. You know, white men essentially projected all of their own anxieties onto black men and looked at them as sexual, beasts.
In the fall of 1912, federal authorities arrested and convicted Johnson for transporting one of his lady friends from Pittsburgh to Chicago. Few doubted that race was the real motivation.
The federal prosecutor immediately after the conviction expressed before the press the hope that this would be an example about the evils of permitting Negroes and whites to marry.
So we got flamboyant, in your face, black men being inherently sexually deviant. Do you think that the spirit of the Mann Act has found its way and still haunts this case in any way?
The spirit of the Mann Act.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting one. I mean, I think that there has always been something about black men that, I think white men may have some sort of intimidation about, and it's not just about these sexual aspects so much as when I listen to some of these podcasts, because people kind of let loose, they look at black men or black culture as, being cool, hip, and then they try so hard to emulate it in many ways, and it just doesn't work. It just it's just corny. It just doesn't. Right. Just not. It shouldn't. They shouldn't say certain things. It's not going to have any edge to it. So I think that there has always been some aspect of black culture in which we drive forward the American culture and mainstream, and then it just becomes mainstream over time. So from that standpoint, maybe there is something to that. But this also happened during a period of Jim Crow, when after emancipation, they developed laws so that they could still continue to oppress black people, a new set of laws, since the slave ones wouldn't necessarily meet their needs. So you always have to think about what needs are being met. And one last thing before I turn it over to Jay is, well, I like irony. Interestingly enough, at one point, maybe it was 15 or 20 years ago, when Jack Johnson was becoming very popular and well known in the media, P. Diddy actually had developed a clothing line called the Jack Johnson Collection. This is very short-lived.
I did not know this.
And now he is being convicted of the very same law or violation.
Oh, all the research I did.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Look that one up.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Oh man, I missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I thought about it and I said, Jack Johnson, he watched the PBS show, because I didn't think he was the kind of guy that would watch that. But everybody knew about it and everybody was talking about it. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that little tidbit.
That is key.
Major tidbit.
Right. So, what's your thoughts on the Mann Act and its historical context, and how it might find its way into this particular case?
Yeah, I think it's clear why it was created in the first place. It was created as a tool to then weaponize against who they wanted to weaponize it against, and it's all this time it's continuing to be used as a tool to weaponize against who they want it to be weaponized against. And just the way you know this is true is just the vagueness in the language that they still haven't updated in 2025, so that they can literally use this, and they might not get you on all this stuff or whatever, but if they want to get you, this is so vague.
It's so vague
that they can say, well, technically this part of it you did this or you did that.
Okay, you know what the one thing is why I'm going through my notes here? I wish I took better notes. Bottom line is
intense notes.
Yeah, but I can't read my writing. Okay, so I'll just put this down. No, the bottom line is like what you guys were saying. Yeah, the laws can be interpreted in certain ways, but and we will talk about one of Diddy's lawyers who did this brilliant presentation on the Mann Act, and the average sentencing was like, the maximum was
Yes,
about
we're gonna-
28, months, was it? I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, no, we're going to
now.
get into that later on in the.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you brought it up because we're definitely going
Because
to
the
break that
sentencing
down.
is just completely unfair. They'll do whatever they want when they want, especially when we were talking about the federal government. They make these laws as ambiguous, as possible.
You're going to say transportation for prostitution or debauchery. So then,
Right.
so then once you begin to police people's bedrooms, then you're able to hang somebody on this particular clause. So,
Absolutely. Can I say one thing?
yes, sure.
Alexandra Shapiro brought that up during Rule 29. I was there for Rule 29 last week, Thursday as well. And she said that the history of the Mann Act is an embarrassment to America. And she said the fact that this is still illegal in 2025 is just an
Insane.
absolute
It's insane. The
It
fact
is.
that they criminalize sex work as well as, well, we'll get into that too, but also criminalization of drug use. So now, the Justice Department, I'm sorry. Well, we kind of went into this. How do we talk about justice when the laws themselves are born out of injustice? You just touched on that. So now let's zoom out a little bit and look at how the Department of Justice leadership changes affect who gets prosecuted and how. So moves like firing Maureen Comey weren't just political. They they sent a message about the kinds of cases that get pushed. So what are some of your thoughts on federal leadership and how it shapes these high-profile cases?
I mean, the thing about Maureen Comey, first of all, James Comey is her father. Trump is
Absolutely.
going after her.
Absolutely.
But in terms of, I guess she had some other high-profile cases, such as the Epstein, case, which wasn't fully prosecuted, I guess. But the other thing.
But I think she prosecuted Maxwell for sure, not
Ghislaine
Epstein.
Maxwell.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the thing is, the federal government is looking at her. But personally, I don't really think she was fired, from the Southern District Courthouse. I think it was because maybe this P. Diddy trial, because it was such an embarrassment, because they tried to do a RICO. They couldn't do a RICO because it was just overcharged. And when you really looked at the case and just analyzed it, like by week 4, I went from hating on Diddy to being in Diddy's corner simply because the evidence wasn't there, and it was just basically it was a bullshit charge. It just did not seem to work.
And there's a lot of like these, you have Judge Subramanian being appointed by, I think, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if I'm not mistaken. And you have the whole situation with Maureen Comey. It's kind of layered, and I feel as if I truly believe that they were trying to go after his money. They wanted the $1 billion.
So that's why they did the
RICO. That's why they did the trafficking.
Well,
and if they would have been able to corner him for that, they would have had.
But I'm thinking that they went, okay, I think that people act out of self-interest all the time, regardless of whether or not this guy did crimes or not. So the thing is, these are some prosecutors who don't work for private law firms, so they're not getting paid the money that you would normally make. They're not getting their $200,000 or $300,000 a year or $1 million a year bonus. So the way they make a name for themselves is to actually just win cases. And what is more prestigious in their world than a RICO case? What is more prestigious in their world than having a high-profile Sean P. Diddy Combs, defendant? If they can get either one of those or both, that's a feather in their cap. And I think that they did it out of self-interest. They overcharged him. The RICO was bullshit. But the thing is, then she winds up getting fired. Who knows? It could have been political, or they looked at this.
It was in the midst of that whole Epstein and
conspiratorial.
Yeah, like Trump was running around with a chicken with his head cut off. I think he was on Twitter saying something along the lines of like something about his friends. Like, I thought you were my friends. He was really really stretching it. He was really losing his mind. So I think he just in the midst of it. And plus, they did horrible job prosecuting this case. So I mean, part of me feels as if I'm not surprised that she got fired, even though it's on the heels of his name being mentioned in the Epstein files. So it's like, I think, like a two-headed.
Well, it could very well have been that. It could have been a variety of things, but I think that the case was weak. The evidence was very weak. They spent $10 million on this.
Exactly.
So $10 million in New York City could go for a lot of more important things than to go after this guy for that. I don't know, Jay, what do you think?
Well, I also want to bring up the fact that this was inherited by Maureen Comey.
That part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
That's what,
Damian Williams is the one that brought these charges up in the first place.
Right.
I don't even know that Maureen Comey would have. I've spoken to people in Puff's camp, and they think that Maureen Comey wouldn't have taken the case.
Good for her.
And Damian Williams, he was running for forgot what he was running for, but he was running for something at that time. And as soon as Trump's administration got elected, he resigned.
Right.
So because he knew he's not going to get the position that he was running for.
Right.
I think he was overzealous because he was trying to say, like, I will be the one to bring up these charges. I'm not scared. Anybody, whether you're a celebrity or whether you're black, I'm not going to say just because Puff is black, I'm not going to whatever.
Yeah,
and he stood there so happy and so proud, talking about baby oil for 20 minutes.
Baby oil, oh my God.
Seasoned bottles of baby oil and talking about how
guns.
We raided guns and this and that. Like, guns are illegal in Florida. So everybody has guns in their home in Florida.
Right.
And talking about how just a year ago we gave him the key to the city, and now we are prosecuting him, and I'm the guy that will do that. And as soon as he realized he wasn't going to get elected for his position, he got up out of there and said, "All right, here, Comey, I'm out."
Right. And she was sitting there like, what am I supposed to do? So. Let's go into the sentencing and the reactions and the implications, okay? So we have Diddy's legal team who fought for time served, citing character witnesses, past community work, and lack of prior convictions. But the judge disagreed, handing down a sentence that sparked reactions from all sides. So let's take a listen to one of the most surprising voices in this, the Punisher, one of the escorts who testified. So can you introduce yourself to the civil society?
Government name is Sheree Hayes, like she said, more popularly known as the Punisher, and I'm just outside of the sentencing here, just taking it all in.
My first question is, how did you find out that you needed to testify for the trial?
Literally, the federal investigators just showed up at my house. I want to say May of 2024. Okay. And they just asked me a few questions, which led to another interview, and then when we got to probably about March of 2025, a couple months before the trial, they said they wanted to use my testimony, and here I am.
When was the last time that you attended a freak-off with Cassie and Diddy?
March of 2015.
Oh, March of 2015. The question is, do you feel in any way that sex work or that people's bedrooms are being policed in any way, shape, or form based on this trial? Or what's your thoughts on the sentencing?
Well, so I don't feel bedrooms are being policed. It's not about policing the bedroom. The allegations were centered around the bedroom. So there was no choice but to address that. And the sentencing itself, even coming down here believing that it should have been time served, after hearing the judge give his reasons, I have to say it was warranted. I didn't take into consideration what the judge pointed out, that even after Diddy releasing that heartfelt apology about the hotel video and being under investigation, he then after that still had a freak off where he abused Jane. So when you understand those circumstances, you have to kind of understand that it was warranted, that there was going to be some time given.
Can you share with us what you're holding here?
Oh, this is my book. It was in the trial, In Search of Freezing Me. It's a men's self-help book and a story about my life story, and a book about my life story. Just trying to write a relatable, personable, fun book that also is a self-help book for men that are struggling possibly with erectile dysfunction and other issues in their sexuality. It's a great read. It's great for women also because, you know, you're dating these guys that go through these problems, and it's good to understand where it's coming from. And that's the silver lining of the trial, because the book has been received very positively, and I'm getting good traction, and it's segueing me into a men's self-help field, so I'm proud of that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Goddamn shame. I'm sorry. So, he originally said that Diddy should be released when he was coming up into the courtroom, but after hearing the judge's rationale, he agreed with the decision, calling it self-inflicted. So my question is, what's your take on the Punisher?
I'll be honest. I thought he was an honest witness.
Yes.
He was,
absolutely.
Just so people know, he was the witness that said, he was one of two escorts, and he was the witness that said, I never left New York. So the whole Mann Act thing was out the window for him. And by the way, there was no escort for your audience. There was no escort that said they got transported or they were out in New York. This was for Jane and for Cassie. And essentially what the claim was that he flew Jane and or Cassie, both of them, outside state or outside the country in order to participate in this sex act, in these freak-offs, which I don't know how you could transport your own girlfriend for prostitution.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. She ain't gonna pay for the flight.
Right, and were they going home? Because she had a home in New York and California, so were she being trafficked or going home? But the other thing is, I found that really, like, I don't know why they wouldn't call not one escort. So there was two escorts that spoke during the trial. Neither one of them were actually trafficked or left out of the state. Both of them were housed in New York. So we didn't hear from any escort that was transported.
Correct.
Period.
So it's just the girlfriends?
Just the girlfriends.
So wait, you know
and not one co-conspirator either, unless you want to get into whether or not Cassie was a co-conspirator. Was Cassie a victim or a co-conspirator?
So, I mean, okay, so does that mean that my boyfriend can't fly me to Las Vegas? And if we do, we better not have sex. We better come home and have sex. Otherwise, it's trafficking.
Well, the issue is the fact that there has to be a commercial sex act. So the fact that they had these threesomes and then they had someone else in the room
you mean I can't have a threesome?
You can't have a threesome with somebody who's an escort.
Paid.
You can only have threesomes with people who do it for free. You gotta
which also doesn't make any sense because this person is an escort, not a prostitute, right? And they work for a company that is a legal company. You can Google it. Your audience can Google it right now. Cowboys for Angels. We did it on my channel. We went to their website. You could click, and hire somebody right now to come out and hang out with you right now.
Right.
So it's just like the company's making money. The escort's making money. The girlfriend's getting flown around on trips and Turks and vacations and free flights and free food, and Puff goes to prison.
And Puff goes to prison for sitting in the corner with in his Muslim garb and some baby on an Astroglide. I can't.
It makes no sense.
Puff didn't have sex.
He didn't. He was sitting in the corner watching.
He didn't even.
He was sitting in the corner watching, entertaining himself. And I'm not joking about the Muslim guard. That's what the Punisher said. The Punisher said that he was wearing a burqa.
Yeah,
but anyway,
he said that.
Well, he didn't want anybody.
He was sitting in the corner and he wasn't engaging with them. So it just really doesn't make any sense at all.
For watching. He's doing 4 years for watching. So now, right after that, let's hear from Diddy's defense team speaking to the press just outside the courthouse.
There is a human being now in custody for 50 months.
Diddy was just sharing.
Based upon conduct that a jury heard, the jury resolved, and the jury rejected. It is really a sad day for everybody.
I don't feel that way. We are planning to appeal. We think we have strong bases to appeal. The strongest basis is that the jury reached a verdict on coercion. It found there was not coercion, and I think the judge said coercion today as a basis for a sentence at least a dozen times. The jury's verdict was resoundingly clear. There was no sex trafficking, there was no racketeering, everything was consensual, everything was adult, which is why he was convicted only of the prostitution offense. What we feel happened today was that the judge acted as a 13th juror, one that we did not choose, and that he second-guessed the jury's verdict.
So, my question to you all is, do you think that the judge played the 13th juror?
Absolutely. Because I'm up here, you know, taking notes and everything. But the thing was, okay, he was sentencing him not based on what, you know, what the precedents were for the Mann Act, which was the max was 28 months, the average was 7 months or something to that
something like
effect.
that. I have it.
Yeah, it was like 50 months total that, you know, he got. But he said he wanted to make an example of Diddy. He started to bringing in all these other things about abuse, you know, domestic violence, sexual abuse. That was not what he was charged on. If that were what he should have been charged on, they should have brought those charges against him, and they never did.
They did, though. That went in conjunction with the trafficking.
That's not the
trafficking
same as
is coercion.
But okay, well, it's not the
coercion
same.
Fraud.
No, it was
force.
sex trafficking by fraud because he lied to Jane and said, "I'm gonna, you know, we'll have a romantic evening," instead they had a hotel night. That's different. But the bottom line is, when he was doing the sentencing, I want to make an example of you. The defense was saying all these things about domestic violence and everything because of the video with Cassie.
The judge brought up the video with Cassie too.
The judge brought up the video
like,
with Cassie.
We watched the video and we watched you. I think he said your heinous abuse or heinous beating. I think he said. The funny thing is, the judge said, and I was sitting right here listening to the. We all were.
Like, we all
were, and we don't agree with what the judge. And guess who doesn't agree? The jury didn't agree. The jury didn't agree.
The jury heard. So, by the way, just to reiterate. We all were there for pretty much the entire duration of the trial. And so it goes back to when Mark Agnifilo was doing his closing and, you know, on the day where we got the verdict, or the day after we got the verdict, but, you know, before it went to deliberation, he said this was like the trial of what did he say?
The tale of two trials.
The tale of two trials. We were literally watching one trial, and there was another trial happening simultaneously. And so one of the things that stood out to me during the sentencing, outside of the kids speaking, which was heart-wrenching, outside of Diddy speaking, which was,
oh, I have some.
You know, it was a roller coaster, and outside of the judge going. Like the way he was delivering the sentence, I didn't know where he was going to go with it, was Jason Driscoll, one of Diddy's attorneys. He broke it down like a pound when it came to the case studies. So basically, after Diddy was, it came back convicted, he said he wanted them to bring him some case studies, right?
Basically
Slavic,
some precedents cases in terms of the sentencing.
Exactly.
So when they got and I was very, very impressed with this guy. He just laid it out cold. I mean, he knew
really
his facts. He got it together. He just made it straight. When the judge tried to push back, he clapped back right. He was so good.
He was so good. So let's go through some of Driscoll's points. He said there was no commercial gain. The Department of Justice discourages non-commercial Mann Act prosecutions. So typically, non-commercial Mann Act prosecutions are frowned upon by the Department of Justice. He said that the government cherry-picked these comparisons. He said the Jordan case, which is the one that Slavic, who was one of the prosecution, was on the prosecution, worked for the government. He said that case was not comparable. Why wasn't it comparable? Because Jordan ran a 7-year international prostitution ring.
Right. And this is what the Mark Agnifilo was talking about, the tale of two trials. Because what was happening, and this is what really pissed me off about the judge and why I kept saying that the prosecution lied, what was happening is there would be a bunch of things that were said on the stand by either Cassie or Jane or whoever.
Yes.
But then we would go and look at the evidence, like text messages, voice notes, emails. You know, we would look at the actual evidence, receipts, all that stuff, and it contradicted what the witnesses would say on the stand.
Right.
And then what would happen is the prosecution would just ignore the fact that it contradicted it and keep saying, Cassie told you, sat on this stand, and she told you what happened to her. But the jury's not
she did
stupid.
not.
We saw the other trial, which was the actual evidence. But
Right.
what the media is pushing out is only the quotes from the stand, and those are obviously, you know, the big, oh, she was urinated on and this and that.
Right.
But when then the escort comes over and he says, well, yes, I did urinate on her,
And she
but
asked
Puff
for
wasn't even in the room, and she asked me to do it.
Exactly.
And I was doing it wrong, and she taught me how to do it the right way.
Yes, this is what was happening, and we were sitting there the entire time. You're not getting this from
the media.
mainstream
No,
media.
you're not getting that.
hearing
all you're
this
hearing is
at
that
all.
Cassie testified that she was urinated in her mouth and on and all this stuff. So that's what he means when there's a tale of two trials. But the reason I bring that up is because this is what the prosecution did again during sentencing.
Yes,
they would bring
tried it
this
almost.
case, for example, the Jordan case, and she sits there and tells the judge, this case is comparable because there was violence in this case. She leaves out the fact that he made $1.8 million off of a
Yes.
7-year prosecution rate, and that he was
100 clients.
Yes, over 100 clients. And he even broke down and said, Driscoll did. He said, think about how many times this prostitution would have had to happen to make $1.8 million.
Right.
You're talking about what, $100, $500 a pop to get to $1.8 million. How many times this was happening? And she left out the fact, the judge called her out on it, but she left out the fact that this guy was not a first-time offender. He served time in Cuba,
Yes.
8 years in prison.
And he's also a murderer, too.
Yes, and
Right.
and when the judge brought that up to her, she said, yeah, that's true, Judge, but he was really sentenced this long time because of the violence, not because it was his
Right.
second offense.
Yeah, that
and
was-
Driscoll's like, this is not even comparable.
Exactly, it wasn't comparable. And the other one that they brought up, Mi Sun Cho,
Yes.
had 4 prior prostitution arrests and only received 60 months. And then he went on to bring up, this is Driscoll, part of Diddy's defense. He mentioned Salisbury, Clemens, Pearsons, all had violence, even as far as the forcing people to have sex during their menstruation, threats, drugging, coercion, and these individuals only received 27-month sentences.
One of them was a 14-year-old girl.
And yes, and some of it was
Because they're saying that the
predatory.
Mann Act was really only being used in cases like that when people were actually making millions of dollars. They were actual pimps. This was a real, true prostitution ring, and also when it had to do with minors. So that's actually when the Mann Act was being done. But the other thing I want to bring out too about Diddy, I mean, clearly he's not a pimp. You know, he's
oh, that's the other part.
The judge stopped Driscoll and said, but the prosecution says that he's playing the role of a pimp. So what do you have to say to that? And Driscoll goes, well, Judge, all pimps make money. He wasn't making any money.
He said all pimps have one thing in common: they make money.
They make money.
and the thing about Diddy is, I mean, when he has a business, he goes large and he makes a lot of money. So if he were a pimp, he'd probably be the pimp. He would be the pimp
Making
daddy.
tons of money. But we have to move forward a little bit. So. The media and public narrative, I want to get into that. So from the headlines to hot takes, the media was ready for this trial. But how did they frame it? That's another story. In mainstream media, we saw emphasis on salacious claims and luxury excess. And in black media, the conversation was deeper about betrayal, power, protection, and pain. So let's bring in a strong voice. We're gonna go and we're gonna watch a bit of Touré on Joy Reid's podcast, The Readout, as well as a clip that I obtained in front of the courthouse of Touré. Let's take a look.
It's giving R. Kelly, Touré. It's giving. It's disturbing.
You know, I was personally disturbed many years ago. Okay, I I know this man well enough to call him and say, hey, I need a favor.
Yeah.
And this might have been 10, 12 years ago that I called him and say, hey, I have a family member who I want you to hire them as an intern.
Yeah.
And I have never talked about this publicly. And he said yes. And they were flying around, one of the interns, Atlanta, Miami, whatever, on the jet, in the house, whatever. And then the internship stopped abruptly, like 3 or 4 months into it.
Yeah.
And I spoke to my family member, like, well, what happened? And they wouldn't say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why did it end? He wouldn't say. And years later, they finally came out, and this a male, and said that Puff had said, come home, stay the night with me, or the internship is over. And they said, absolutely not. He said, absolutely not. And the internship ended. But from there, I was like, oh, like this is how it goes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So to hear that things went even further with potentially, allegedly, many other people demand that everyone around him follow what he wanted. Yeah. And people did. He had a ton of money behind him to start Bad Boy at a very young age. Yeah. And would just treat me. I mean, he's called me up and screamed at me on more than one occasion, and lots of people would say that. So the ego was gigantic. The ability to create the reality that he wanted seemed to be there.
But also to create a reality that was dangerous. I mean, I think for a lot of hip hop fans, the failure to protect Notorious B.I.G., the sort of egging on of an East Coast, West Coast rivalry between friends that were people who knew and respected each other and didn't have to be beefing, and to sort of let that violence come. I think for a lot of us, and that, and also oversampling and making hip hop into a sample machine. Don't get me started.
Now you're doing that.
Now I'm doing that. But I'm only doing that because you're my friend and you'll defend me. No, don't get me started, Touré. How does this go? Is he in the United States? Do we know where he is?
It wasn't 2, it's at least 3, right? And I don't want to get into everything the internet says, but we see to be close to this man, you got to be able to do that, right? Like you got to read Lil Rod's lawsuit, right? He wanted to be a producer. What does that mean? You got to go for the bullshit. He's going to touch you. He's going to give you a drink. Next thing you know, you took a drink, you woke up the next day, and your ass hurts, and you're like, I don't know what happened. I know it was you.
I got one more question. According to USA Today, Courtroom, aka KK, has been working with defense for a couple of months now. So my thing is, what I'm trying to ask is, if that is true, is it possible that they're working on the next case that's coming behind Diddy?
He wants to know if
I have no doubt that Christina is talking to the feds because she's trying to save herself from going to prison. Here's the big fish. Who's right below him? All right, you talk about him. And if you talk about him, then you don't go to prison. I don't know why she's not on the stand. That's one of the
She never testified.
No, I know. I don't know why they didn't call her. I mean, you could subpoena her and make her get up.
So, Touré, I think he was a classic example of the way that the media, black media, even mainstream media, legacy media, portrayed the trial and versus the fake news. I can't believe I'm agreeing with this dude, but yeah, the fake news. So, I remember I saw Touré in the hallway, and I said to him, you know what, everything that you're saying on your podcast, kudos. I think that, you're doing a wonderful job. However, none of that is happening inside that courtroom. None of it. There was no...
He was only there a few days in the last week.
Yeah. There a few days.
Yeah, he was, and he literally came like I think for the verdict. Yeah, he was just there for the verdict and the deliberation. That was it.
Yeah, he came for the verdict, and he came after the defense rested already.
Right.
And everybody was clapping for Mark Agnifilo in my courtroom. And he comes to me and he's like, is there a party in here? What's going on? And I said, the defense killed it. Then he goes on his podcast talking about how Diddy's doomed and blah, blah, blah.
Right, and I was trying to, then him and I were sitting together when the judge was giving out the instructions for the jury. And when it got to the part where they said, hey, listen, if you feel as if his drug use, what was it, the drug use?
The distribution?
No.
In sentencing guidelines for the jury, the judge said that if you feel that Diddy was either too intoxicated or too drunk to have had capacity to do these things intentionally,
basically
he gets a pass. And that was the thing that I was thinking, okay, great. This is what they can use to get him acquitted, basically.
And so at that point, when the judge laid that out, Touré, I mean, he went all the way up to the monitor, like, oh, snap. I was sitting there like, I told you none of that stuff was going on your podcast here, and I feel sorry for your cousin, sorry to that man, but none of that was happening. So let's get back to sentencing day. We got Judge Submarinian gave Diddy 4 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, clarify these things for me. Maybe the two of you know better. Okay, he was given 50 months, and then but some say it's time served. I didn't hear that. Was he time served with 50 months
That's
or
the
not?
thing. From my understanding, I spoke to someone who has some legal knowledge, and they said that if the person doesn't receive bail, they're not allowed to get time served. So that's something I have to look further into, but that's what I was informed of.
It's different for federal time.
Okay.
Meaning?
So from my understanding, what I read, because originally I said 36 months, which would have been 50 months minus his 14 years that he served.
Right.
So that's what was my prediction in the first place.
Right.
But it's different when it's federal time.
Right.
Because also federal time, he could serve 0. Like it's all, at this point, it's all up to the government. There's no actual mandatory minimum for federal time.
Right.
And usually you serve around, you already get 15% off your sentence anyways for good behavior.
Right.
So you serve
15,
85.
not 10. I thought it was 10
for
good
4
behavior.
years. You'll get, I think it's one.
Okay, so this is how I break it down, because I chat GPT, right? Who doesn't? No, but okay, 10% for good behavior, 10% for a batterer program, 10% for substance abuse, automatically 30% reduction from, and even in the courtroom I was thinking, okay,
But it's not percentage. It's for amount of days. You get X amount of days for X amount of days served. So it will go by how long your sentence was.
Okay.
So if your sentence, for his sentence specifically, is five years, I think it's 2 days for every 30 days served. So every month he'll get 2 days of credit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 2 days if I'm correct, but it's amount of days every single month. Excuse me,
days
that
of credit.
makes up 85% basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and
he
then-
has to do 85% of his time.
Yeah, but then he's also is probably going to join the drug program if he successfully completes rehab, which he's a perfect candidate for. By the way, he gets another 12 months that he can take off his time.
Oh, okay.
So he might be out by next summer.
Next summer. I have a friend who's a cop, and he said he'll be in a halfway house by next summer.
Yeah,
Don't
because
worry.
exactly. And then also with the program that he's running, if he continues that program that he started at MDC in the other prison,
in Florida, right.
I think it's 15 days for every 30 days you run the program. You get credit as well.
So he's already done 6 weeks.
Yeah, so Diddy started a program at MDC.
MDC.
Yeah.
Called Free Game, where basically he's working with inmates, and I think it spans across different, I think he has different gang affiliations and.
Yeah, he's trying to basically it's a 6-week course on business.
Right.
And his approach was, because in the prison system people are divided by gangs, gang affiliation or race or whatever. There's a lot of division. So he said that if you come into my class, you have to be nice to each other, you have to get along. That was the first baseline thing. But the thing was, he was teaching practical skills. I mean, Bill Cosby did this when he went to jail. He taught people how to dress and how to interview for a job. And these are kinds of skills that might seem like common knowledge to us, but a person who winds up in the criminal justice system has had a variety of disadvantages. They're also down and out. They are not at their peak or wherever, right? So if you have somebody like P. Diddy who's going to, evangelize or whatever, or tell them what they need to do and give them a modicum of hope, I think that goes a long way, and that says a lot. To me, that's why I actually, let me just plug this.
Right.
I actually, we can save this now that the trial's over. I contacted Xavier R. Donaldson because I have a background in financial crimes. And so I said, if you're going to prove financial crimes, you have to do X, Y, and Z. Make sure it didn't come out of his pocket, and or out of the company's pocket. only his. And he said, good point. And they brought it up, and they actually used that in the trial. Then I said, hey, do you remember me? You know, I have a podcast now. And I sent it to him, and I said one of the things I think Diddy should do while he's in jail is actually to start classes, you know, and maybe that would, you know, if anything, will help, maybe help him, help others. And they're doing it. I don't know if it was, you know, if I can take, responsibility for that one, but I think it was a good idea.
I'm convinced that Diddy's defense team was taking a look at different podcasts.
Right.
I know that there were content creators who were reaching out.
Really?
And speaking with them. So I do believe that they were taking people's thoughts, ideas.
They wanted to see what the public was thinking, because that's one of the things I led with when I did contact him. I said, people are talking about these things when we're watching in the overflow rooms. But I think that if you have a person of a certain amount of success, like Diddy, because he is somebody who built himself from nothing, from scratch, and he became a billionaire. You can love him, you can hate him, but he is a man of success. He's an entrepreneur. He knows how to invent himself, reinvent himself, and I'm a person who believes in second chances, and everybody loves a good comeback story. And you look at Silicon Valley. I'm from Northern California. I know people in that industry, and a lot of times the people with talent who got investments, they wound up, if they failed, they gave back their investments. A lot of people were scammers, had no talent, they just walk away with the money.
Right.
But the people who gave back the money, they were able to come back, reinvent themselves, and actually, come up with something bigger and better. And Steve Jobs is a case in point. So the thing is, what I'm thinking about, depending on, Diddy's take and his mindset, he might want to reinvent himself in a certain way and a certain trajectory, and I think that would be great.
And speaking of reinventing himself, let's just get into who he once was. His children came, they showed this amazing video. It was about 11 to 15-minute video going over his life, showing him with his kids, showing him with Kim Porter, and then also showing him working with the charter schools in Harlem.
Right.
What else? There was so many different things, and his kids spoke to that.
Well, he did Vote or Die, and Nicole Westmoreland, who's one of his attorneys, a female African American attorney, said that he changed the way, I guess, voting for young people is done, and maybe Rock the Vote might be one case in point.
Right.
And also, she said that she was really, like one of his lawyers, she was actually crying because she was touched by him.
I'm sorry. We were laughing when Nicole was crying. If you want to know what was going on in the courtroom, we was like, "Girl, please stop. Abort mission."
They're saying she need better
abort mission. It was horrible. At one point, the girl next to me was like, "Is she sleeping with him?" I was like, "Abort mission, abort mission." No, Nicole. Nicole rocked it.
She cried twice.
Nicole, right? Yeah. Nicole, she was crying. She cried more than Cassie on the stand. But
she said that he had touched her.
She needs to just stick to cross-examination.
She was a great cross-exam, but he had touched her. So I was trying to figure out what it was that he said that made her feel.
She said that he said. She said that he said, "Follow your dreams, but don't forget to wake up." And
girl, what is it, The Wiz?
And execute. And when you do, make sure when your dreams come true, make sure you help others. And she said that advice changed her life. So
okay, Nicole.
I mean, who does? Oprah says that.
Everybody says it. Your mama says it. You can say it to yourself in the mirror, girl. Bye. Anyway, it wasn't as touching as the kids, and then Diddy got a chance to speak finally.
Okay, and I took notes.
Yeah. So, what was your thoughts on Diddy's?
When he was speaking, honestly, I just was, when you have that cringe moment, like. It's not that he said anything wrong. It's just that he's standing there saying, "I apologize to my kids. I'm a horrible person. I apologize to the victims." And then he said to his mother, like, "I failed you as a son."
Right.
And it's just like, all this for 2 Mann Act charges?
Right. Mama,
what's going on?
Mama, I love you. P.O.P. hold it down.
I was like, this is crazy. For 2 Mann Act charges, this man is like literally on his knees begging a judge. And I was just like, what? it was upsetting to me. That's what
Right.
it
It's
probably was.
cringeworthy.
Yeah.
He goes, "I'm sorry to my community."
Now that was
If
that was
given
necessary.
a chance, people can change because I've changed. I changed. Okay, certain events can happen to change your trajectory. Things happen. Things happen that can change your trajectory. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I beg your honor for mercy to be a father, a son, a community leader, and to get the help that I need. I don't want to let God down and my kids. And if I let them down, they have no other parent. I have, okay, bad handwriting. And I promise I will never put my hands on another person again. I want to share my story. This is not a scheme to get, out or get less time. I don't care about the fame, the celebrity, the money. It will have, he wants to do things, I guess, that'll have a positive outcome and a healing effect. And if I can share my story and help at least one person, then, I guess he's done his deed.
And just please let me get out in enough time to make my speaking engagement on Monday. Because he did that too.
No. No, the speaking.
That is cocky.
The speaking engagement was just him going down to Florida.
That's the
No.
see, to me, that's the tale of the two trials again.
Right.
Because what happened was,
Wait.
that's the tale of the two trials. Because what happened was the prosecution, I was wondering why they were saying certain things because the judge knows better.
were
They're not
saying
speaking
about
into the jury anymore. And the defense has all the information. So I was like, why are they saying these things? I was speaking to somebody at lunch, and they said they're saying it for the press. And that speaking engagement, the press ran with that. They said he booked the speaking engagement for Monday, thinking in Miami, thinking he was gonna get out and whatever.
That was
and
bullshit.
then we broke for lunch.
And what
so
happened?
then all of the influencers went wild with it. He booked the speaking engagement for cocky. So what it really was you can't, if you're asking the judge for zero jail time, for him to leave and go home today, it can't just be I'm going home, do house arrest, twiddle my thumbs, just hang out with my family. It has to be you convincing the judge that he's more valuable on the outside than the inside.
Right.
So that's the reason why they said they booked him for a program, to be a part of a program, saying that he can help this correctional.
But it was
facility.
basically so that he could do the same class he did down
teaching
in
the same
Florida.
class, yeah.
That's
The free
what it
game.
was.
So there you have it. Now listen, tonight we opened a conversation that is still unfolding clearly. We looked at the law, the history, the media, and the community cost, and how each of those things shape what justice looks like when Black power is on trial. We won't all agree, and that's the point. But if we're going to build a future where justice actually means something, we got to start with the truth. And y'all didn't get that from the media, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it involves our own. So I want to thank my panelists. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate it. And thank you to my audience. And thank you to the culture for still pushing us to ask better questions. I am Lady T, and this has been the T Lounge. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, because here on the T Lounge, we don't give a sip.
Yeah, that's T mate. What? You are now rocking the sheet, your favorite beat, Lady T in a place to be. And you must now enter the T line. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Lady T up in the mix, yeah, time for the show. Tune into the lounge where you already know. Serving up the gossip, hot, fresh, fast, and slow. Hit that subscribe, let the engagement flow. Comments go wild, audience on the go. Attention on point.